Welcome to Parenting Teens, the podcast where we navigate the ups and downs of raising teenagers. As founders of Ramp Nutritional Products for Teens, we're real parents going through the same challenges, and we bring on experts to offer unique insights and inspiration. Join our community and know you're not alone in your struggles. Hey, Simona.
Hey, Annie.
Right before we started recording, you said work in progress. And yes. I think that's actually such a good place to start because this is our first podcast recording. And I feel like that's a really good through-line theme for us, work in progress, right?
Absolutely.
So today on the podcast, you and I are doing a dedicated episode, and we're going to kind of introduce ourselves a little bit, and we're going to tell a little bit of our story, and we're going to talk about how we got here, how we got to this very moment, this work in progress moment, and why we're doing what we're doing and why we're so excited about it. So I think we need to start not at the very beginning, because that would just be like a whole other situation. But we're going to start with a little bit about how we met and how we came to launch this new company called Ramp and why we're doing this. But like maybe, I don't know, Simona, do you want to just talk a little bit about when you and I first connected and kind of a little bit what we were doing?
Yeah, for sure. So I had recently moved back to Toronto. I was living in Vancouver. I had a son there, and I got a call from this really interesting company, this European company that wanted to bring something new to the infant formula and the baby food space. And I thought about it, and as a family, we thought about it, and we decided it was a really good opportunity. So we jumped on it and came back, and I started to work for this brand called Cabrita. I was pregnant again and juggling those realities of, having a toddler and being pregnant and working in a startup, which is a lot. And I think a year or so in is when you came on. Is that right?
Yeah. No, I joined at the very end of 2014, early 2015. And kind of just like jumped into that startup life. Again, at the time, Cabrita had just sort of started. It was super early days, but my background had been sort of professionally. I'm a trained naturopathic doctor. I've been practicing for a number of years, but also really supplementing my clinical work with work in the natural product industry. So I was doing a lot of education and communications and sort of came into Cabrita to support, the medical efforts essentially. And yeah, that was like a pretty special time. It was a really small or relatively small group of very dedicated individuals working to kind of be a category disruptor. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was really, really exciting. We kind of started from nothing, and, we had this product to this goat milk formula that was, I think to many of us, because we're kind of long-term health foodies, it made a lot of sense to us. We're like, this should have existed, decades ago. But to the general public, it was like, what is this and why would I feed this to my baby? And, we had our work cut out for us, but in the best way. I think it was really exciting.
And I think this will tie a little bit into a little bit about how we got here. But, you mentioned, you were pregnant, you had a little one. My kids are just a few years older. So I was just barely on the other side of that early mommyhood, essentially. And so I was barely tethered, and we were just like grinding it and working so hard. But I do feel like at the time, and I think this continues very much for both of us, it was like, we want to support parents. There has to be a better way. Again, I had just enough clarity of mind being just a few years out to be like, that was really hard. Like, nobody was helping me when my kids were like in those first 24 months. And you were like in it, you were doubly in it. You're like trying to support yourself while you're supporting other families,
Yeah.
And so that like idea of making impact with families, I think, felt really true and really critical and really meaningful because, like I just said, we were literally in that age and stage with our little kids.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we felt like so connected to the customers. I mean, we
Totally.
were the
Yeah.
customers, and we just really had a desire. Like the product was a bit of a problem solver, and there was something really special too about getting those reviews or the emails back. And it's like, for the first time in 6 months, my baby is sleeping through the night or whatever. And we'd be like, oh, we know how sweet that is.
It's
And
everything. It's
it's
everything.
everything.
And I
Yeah.
think that, again, that was a really interesting time. It wasn't just like that's not just when parenting groups started on Facebook, et cetera, but it was still early days there. And so people were, I think, looking for community, like real life community and then virtual community.
Yeah.
And people were realizing that they could like connect online and not feel so alone. And I think that's also a piece of parenthood. It's like there's a real it can be very isolating on many levels.
Yeah.
And I think for us, regardless of what we were selling, I guess, to new parents, I mean, again, assuming it's like high quality and like has integrity, there was about this like that idea of connection. I think
Yeah.
that was like almost like what you just said, getting those reviews, getting that feedback was like helping people feel not alone. I mean, that's
Yeah.
everything, right?
Yeah. It really was for us. And, I have such fond memories of, sitting around the boardroom and just even talking about our own kids with the other people that work there too, colleagues and really like dear friends. And, just really having that place for ourselves as well to share our ups and downs of parenthood was a big piece of why the memories are so fond.
Yeah. Yeah. So we worked there together for about 8 years.
Yep.
I mean, along the way, I'll humble brag for you, but along the way, you went from, leading sales to essentially running to the North American business. Not essentially, you did. There's no
Yeah.
reason I need to add like just like a sort of. You did. So you really supported that tremendous growth, and I'll for myself, I also had exponential professional growth along the way. I got a master's in nutrition, which was such a gift and just so fulfilling professionally, and ended up leading, marketing efforts for the company, which was such an accomplishment and felt so fulfilling as well.
Yeah.
But in that time, in addition to all these professional wins that we had and learnings and growth, our kids got older.
Yes, they
We're in
grew up.
70s.
Who knew?
They got older, and yeah, like, so what's that experience been for you? I have my own thoughts about my kids, but, so the kids are getting older and what? Like, and so what does that feel left you? Where's that left you?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a few things that happened along the way. So one is the kids getting older, and I think, I tried being a working mom it's a lot. And you spread yourself in all these different ways, and it was really important to me to be present with my kids as much as I could. And that's why it was important for me to mandate, even before the pandemic, we had many work from home days. People were able to drop their kids off and pick them up and have that quality time. And so I did feel like I got that in some ways, but then of course the pandemic happened and we were together 24/7. And while that was super challenging, I think it also made me understand like how much I was working and
Mhm.
how, that it maybe I was, only in the office 3 days a week and, emailing and whatever all in between. But really it was like these 60+ hour work weeks, and it was a small amount of time. And I think within that time, I also was like, these kids are growing up, and I'm like, I'm not missing it, but there's little parts of it that I really want to hold and be with, because with my older one is turning 12 this year, and I can already feel like the distance coming, and I'm like, no. But so yeah, it's a very different experience, and I think I think there was two parts of creating ramp and kind of moving on, and one was changing the lifestyle a little bit, and then two was thinking about this next transition time and really realizing there's no support in this section of life. It's just either people making fun of their teens or just panicking and like wondering how it's all going to turn out.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, on my side, the experience or the feeling state that I've had, I had a certain feeling when they were, so I have 2 boys, the older one is 15 now, the younger one is essentially 13, he'll be 13 next month. Um, from when they were 0 to 3, it felt like things were moving fast, There was every month, it was something new physical development, emotional development, like they were really rapid changes. And of course, from 4 to 10, 4 to 11, they're changing a lot too, of course. But it kind of felt like it was a little bit more predictable, as much as childhood can be predictable. There's some broken bones in there. But, there's like, what they can do and how they are, it didn't feel like it was that hockey stick in terms of how things are moving fast. And now that and then all of a sudden they kind of cross this threshold, 11, 12,
Mm-hmm.
and we're feeling it, right? It's sort of the hockey stick again. Things are just revving up, taking off, and going really fast. And I feel like I'm kind of thrown a little bit back to those early days where I'm running to keep up. I don't know where to turn for support. Every month, it's like a new thing,
Yeah.
whether it's, whether it's like they're drinking White Claw or like they're playing a lot of video games or they're on Snapchat. And it's just happening super fast.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't want to miss it. I don't want to wish it away. I know I spent a lot of time when my kids were really little wanting and willing them to get older. I didn't savor it. I mean, of course there were lovely, wonderful parts of babyhood and I loved it. And I always kind of wanted that next stage, like, oh, it'll be better when, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I don't want to sound cheesy, but like I don't want to do that. I want to enjoy the good spots. I want to stay grounded in the hard spots. And yeah, so we kind of so things have been changing. You and I moved on from those roles at Cabrita and have continued to work in the industry. And in parallel, as time does, our kids have been getting older.
Yeah.
So, I recall, both of us have, because we've been in the sort of natural industry for a long time, and because of our backgrounds, we believe in supplementing our kids, whether it's, fish oil or vitamin D or extra protein. I mean, we believe in nutrition. I mean, I shouldn't speak for you, but I know we've spoken. So, we
I do.
believe in the power of good food, good nutrition, healthy habits. And I think we've both, or maybe I'll just speak for myself, but, like there's been a lot of piecemeal supplementation happening in our household over the years.
For sure.
Um, adding a little bit of this or that, a pinch of this to a smoothie, hiding it into like some rice. And it's not even about hiding things. It's just about trying to optimizing it for my kids.
Yeah.
I have 2 boys and they couldn't be more different. They couldn't be more different. And one is a little bit more resistant. One is a little bit more open. And that's, affects how we approach a lot of things, including, the supplements that I think would be ideal for him.
Yeah.
And I recall, you and I had talked about wanting to continue to support families, and just being in my house one day during a kind of a particularly challenging time with our eldest and feeling like there has to be an easier way. There has to be a way that I can get what he needs in a convenient way. And then of course the idea of ramp sort of formed from there. And, the reason why we called it ramp was this, ideally in many ways, not that we want them to go so far, but they're getting ready to launch,
Yes.
and we want to give them the best chances of that. And of course, nutrition is one part. And maybe you can talk a little bit about your experience with nutrition and how you sort of were piecemealing it, and how where we think kind of nutrition falls into the bigger picture, because it is one part, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I think I the first thing that comes to mind, of course, is the nighttime drink,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
famous nighttime drink that um, I have been making for my kids forever. Both of them had challenges in terms of kind of winding down and falling asleep, and then maybe my own piece of that too was just not having an hour and a half every night to lay in bed with each of them.
No, you don't have
um,
that 3 hours, not enough?
there was work to do, there was emails coming, and so yeah, I started to mix them up like a little magnesium drink when they were really small, and then adding like a little bit of this herb, and researching what was safe and what worked, and it just in like tiny doses and sprinkles, and just bringing it in, and it was super effective for them, and they loved it, and it became our nighttime ritual, and it was really sweet and special. And now they make it for themselves, which is like
Oh,
really
such a
every
win,
night.
such a
Yeah.
win.
I know. They're like, oh, I'm just going to mix up the nighttime drink. And, even as they have seen the products as we've created them, they're like, this is like ours. Like, this is our product.
It
I'm like,
is, it
yeah,
is,
that's right.
it is
It
their
is.
product.
Yeah. So for us, it's been important, the whole way. We always try to use nutrition and use herbs and vitamins and minerals whenever we can, and for us it's been super effective. And our pediatrician likes to call them my personal folk remedies, and
I love that.
and works with us on it, which is wonderful. And yeah, it's been great, and it feels really great to also be like, as we went through the process of creating these products and really thinking about what we want in them, it was like a 2-year process for us to really get into the ingredients and the dosages, and clinically what's been shown, and I feel really proud of that.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that, I mean, I guess there's 2 things that I want to say. One, which you started to touch on, was which hopefully is sort of coming through in as we're chatting about it, is, why did we create RAMP? Well, in our minds, there's a real gap in teen and tween nutrition support in the market. There's just really nothing that is really curated to their age and stage and the common concerns that these kids are going through. I don't think my kids are that unique. And of course, they're like super special, but they're not so unique in their concerns. We know that a lot of kids are experiencing stress and energy challenges and focus and attention and gut health. And so I think that it just seems like a real gap. And I think parents, what we're hearing from our community is that parents are looking for some solutions. So I think that sort of that was the impetus to creating RAMP and creating something that was convenient. Um, and then I think part 2 of that, which is part of our broader mission and kind of takes us back to those early days in the baby space, is, as you've kind of just alluded to, nutrition is one part. So like our mission at RAMP is to offer this curated nutrition as well as education and
Mhm.
community. And I think this is where the podcast comes in, as well as some of the resources that we're going to have on our website and through email, et cetera, which is, this podcast is going to be our opportunity to connect with parents of teens and tweens. It's going to be our opportunity to bring in experts in the space. We have a whole long list of wonderful experts who I think are going to be such resources for our community. And it's kind of like a real time exercise to yeah, connect with and communicate with and interact, engage essentially with our community. So I think the podcast sort of ladders up to and fulfills one of our core mission objectives, I guess, which is really
Mhm.
important to us.
Yeah, I think it's, with both business and then personally, I think we're both kind of, this is the wrong word, but I was going to say resource junkies. That's probably not exactly right. But I think we, really like to know what's out there. We're both like big readers. We love information. And so I think we gather a lot. And I think within both of us is this real desire to share and help and connect people with the right resources for the transitions that they're currently in.
Right. So, at the risk of sounding cheesy, it's going to bring me back to where we almost started, which is work in progress, which is
Yes.
like, why are we into resources? Because we're striving for progress, not perfection. And that is at least one of my core values as a parent. That's how I approach my own personal evolution. And I'm working on it. And I think this podcast and this company is part of that work, honestly.
Yeah, agreed. Me too.
As you mentioned, part of the podcast is being a resource, of course, to parents. And so we are hoping to close each episode with a recurring question that we're going to ask our guests, whether they are professionals in the space or another parent, just again, so we can gather actionable tools for other parents. Again, we all want to grow our toolbox as parents. So I'm going to ask you the question, Simona, and then I will answer the question if you ask it to me, or I'll just answer it. And so the question is going to be along the lines of this. Can you share with us and our community one strategy, one action, one intention, something that you do with your own kids to help further or foster connection? So
Hmm.
what's one thing that you do to create that bond or that connection?
Yeah. So for our family, I've really noticed that bedtime period or just that nighttime period is the real sweet spot when the kids will open up and share. And there was a point in my parenting journey where I found that really challenging because it's like I've done all the things for you today and now it's going to be my time, and now is when you're going to, unload about this friendship or this happened in class or whatever. But what I realized along the way is it is the window, and it might not be the window that I choose, but it's the window that's happening. And so I started to adjust my day a little bit. So I have a meditation practice daily for many years now. And that just in general is a huge help in terms of parenting. So I have a meditation window in the morning, but then I also have one later in the afternoon. And what I did was I sent the kids up to get ready, and then I would do my meditation for like 20 minutes or 15 minutes. And then I would come up and I was calm and I was present and I was peaceful. There was nothing to rush down to after. And so I could really dedicate that time with them. And it's made a big difference in our connection. I'm not hurrying them through the process. I'm spending time listening to them. They have things to share with me, and I can really receive it. And that feels good. Yeah. So, what about you? What's one thing, action, strategy that you use with your kids?
So you said something that kind of triggered it for me. And I actually am just going to put a pin in this. I'd like us to answer this question in 3 months again and see if we
Oh,
change our answer.
I like that.
So the way I'm going to answer this today, which you talked about sort of, not, I don't think you literally said altering your schedule, but kind of responding to their needs and when they're opening. Um, so my strategy right now, I think, is honoring, respecting some of the I don't want to call it, well, I will call it like their love language, and
Mm,
responding to them their unique love languages. So our older one, um, even though he's totally capable as a 15-year-old to do a lot and does take the initiative and is quite responsible, responds very well to acts of service. So he's not a big talker, but I know that if I do something for him, like make him pancakes in the morning or um, keep a plate. He plays rugby, so if he has a late practice, and I keep a plate of food for him warm and it's ready when he walks in, he's he'll come over to me and give me a hug, like his 15-year-old teenage
mm.
bro hug. But it's we don't have to say anything, but I think he feels cared for.
Yeah.
And that's different from our younger one who doesn't seem to have as much. I don't know. It's not that he doesn't care, but he doesn't seem to like respond that way. He's much more into physical touch.
Mm.
And so I'm much more intentional with him when he wakes up in the morning. We do a nice big we hug every day. We like big juicy hugs, like
Yeah.
hold you tight hugs. And I think that touch makes him feel connected and secure. And he'll often just put his head on my shoulder and I can feel he kind
Oh,
of melts into it. So, I mean, as I said earlier, I think they're changing so fast. So I don't know if these strategies are going to remain the same, but I
yeah.
think what feels right is not trying to connect with them how I want to connect,
Yes.
and to meet my needs. I'm trying to be responsive to their needs. Um,
Yes.
which is always really, just not my ways. Just sort of like, okay, I'll just put your plate of hot food on the table and hopefully that'll feel good. But
Yeah, yeah,
it
yeah.
feels right. Like it feels like the right move. It feels like the right move.
Yeah. Absolutely. It really
Yeah.
allows them to be seen in that way that exactly as we talked about fosters that deeper connection and that trust, and it's beautiful.
Yeah. I'm so happy we had a chance to do this, Simona. I'd really, like I said, like us to do this again in a few months. We can circle back. We can talk a little bit about how we're feeling with this like new child, this new brand child that we have, and how we're raising it and how it's going. And I think we just really look forward to having our experts on and just sharing all the great information with families.
Yes. Thanks for tuning in to Parenting Teens. We hope you found today's episode informative and helpful. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. If you want to dive deep into teen-related resources, visit our website at drinkramp.com. Do you have a teen-related question? Drop it on SpeakPipe at speakpipe.com/parenting teens. As always, we're here to support you on your parenting journey. Until next time.